You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Thursday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. This is the day we talk about cars. We also talk a little bit about politics because I have Rob Lapham calling all the way from Port St. Joe, just over the Bay County border. And Rob, what are we doing this week? You got anything special that you're trying to take care of towards the Libertarian Party? Anything on your mind?
Well, I got a call from the state chair, and he asked if I would consider serving as chair of the platform committee, and also if I would serve on the candidate committee. And I said sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's coming up this Sunday for a vote of the executive committee. So the answer to your question is I haven't done very much just yet, but I think I'm about to get kind of busy in that area.
Well, you're going. As a state party, we've just got finished doing our audit, getting it ready. Well, I shouldn't call it an audit. It's more like a financial compilation of what we spent. You know, it's just to make sure we're legal with the state of Florida. But we're getting everything in order, and everything is being written out. So whoever takes my position years down the line as state treasurer, they won't have the headache that I went through. Going, okay, what do I do this month? You know, what I got?
Wonderful.
What do I got to pay this month? What I got? You know, what corporations or filing fees or it's just amazing. And I've only been treasurer now for since 2014. This is my third year doing it, but still, dadgum, it seems like every time I turn around, I've got another little hill to cross or a little form to fill out, or the state's not happy with this, or the state wants that. But it's amazing, all the rules and regulations. But I did find something. All correspondence that the state has with the Libertarian Party is on a PDF file, and I found that yesterday, which was wonderful, trying to find records because we couldn't account for $626.26. Didn't know where it went. We found it. We know exactly where it is. We just had to make sure we could document it. But
I think that
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say I think that a person who volunteers to serve as treasurer of the state party is a masochist.
I cannot disagree with you. You know, when I signed up for this job, I said, I can't be that hard. You know, I run a business. You know, and it's really not that. It's really not that hard. But when you have so many people doing so many things, it's you got to make sure they all report back to me and say, okay, what did you spend money on? Okay, where's their address? You know what? That's the hard part, just getting addresses. But yes, I do know that we're active in the state party, but yet we need to be active in our local communities as well, whether it's our city or our county, because that's where the laws that get passed seem to affect us the most as individuals, and that's where we seem to lose a lot of our liberties is at the local level. And I'm seeing the state actually in today's paper the legislators are going to start talking about making a statewide rule about Uber and Lyft, making sure that everybody's on the same page instead of you having a mismatch of county regulations throughout the state. Where one county says you can do this, and another county says you can't. And I think that's a road to recovery, so to speak, to make sure we have a level playing field for everyone out there. Have you read anything about the Uber and Lyft thing the state's planning to doing?
I haven't, other than the meeting I went to that you and Marie were there a month ago. That was the Bay County Commissioners meeting. But I certainly think that any enabling legislation that provides a platform which is, optional, or provides guidance, or provides authority for counties to take advantage of is good. I would hope that it's not a mandate. We're in that sort of narrow area.
If
free commerce is facilitated by the legislation, that's great. If there are restrictions of some kind that cause difficulties, I sort of wonder, what is the state doing mandating across 67 counties? So it really depends on how it's written.
Well, that's a lot. It's the same way with the marijuana initiative out there. You know, the state, if I'm not mistaken, I have to understand, in order to get legalized marijuana for medicinal purposes, you have to be under a doctor's care for at least 90 days. And that starts January 3rd is when that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's when that time period starts. So it's 90 days from January 3rd before you even qualify for it. But if I'm not mistaken, the rules aren't set up yet. The state's got to do it. The legislators got to do that as well. And it's going to be an interesting 2017.
Well, and it's all under the Department of Health. So I think they're making progress.
I hope so.
I think they are.
You know, I was talking to my father-in-law yesterday, and they were talking about how taxes are on it. And I said, well, I don't think there's taxes on it. And he says, yeah, there's not sales tax on it for the state, but the cities or municipalities have a tax on it. And I said, really? And he showed me a receipt where he went to buy something from a commissary, or wherever we bought it. There was no state sales tax on it, but there was a tax from the city that was on there. And I went, oh, I had no idea. So it's going to be a money-making situation for these cities and municipalities that actually have these dispensaries in. And I know some of them seem to be a little upset that they don't want them in their backyard. But if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be very well regulated. It's not going to be like, you know, a coffee house from the hippie days. I think this is going to be a very well-regulated medicinal pharmacy that's going to be under lock and key, and if I understand correctly, just to be able to transport the marijuana from where it's grown to the dispensaries has to be done under an armored car. Right? I'm serious. Right now it's being sent. Right now it's coming from Colorado and all these other states and just everybody's luggage. But still, when it comes from the 5 or 6 dispensaries that are allowed to grow it, what is it? 4 right now, Anna Marie? 4. I think she said 4 dispensaries are allowed to grow it. In order for them to be transported, it's going to have to be done in a strong box and an armored car. I'm going like, wow. I guess they're it's amazing how they're like scared to death of this stuff. But what do you see happening over in the St. Joe area? I know that you're active in that part. Is there anything happening in the community over there as far as Gulf County going?
I haven't been to a county meeting recently, and I just don't know. Okay. I suspect that Gulf County, certainly in many areas, tends to follow Bay County's lead. I mean, obviously, you have the much larger and sometimes professional organization in Bay County. But I haven't heard any striking things. I probably ought to read the local paper to see what's going on, but I haven't seen that recently.
Yeah, well,
I've actually been totally consumed by being a political news junkie, just watching TV at least in the last 24 or 48 hours and just laughing my butt off.
Have you ever heard about?
And frankly, enjoying. I was a week ago. I had a slightly different opinion than Anna Marie on Donald Trump's. Jawboning Boeing and Lockheed Martin and so forth on jets. And after thinking about it, I thought she's right, but that's because he's the customer. He represents the United States, and if he wants to tear a strip off suppliers for aircraft that his government's going to buy, then that makes sense. I don't agree with his jawboning Carrier or any other companies using the heavy hand of the government to threaten companies. I think they should do what they want. And frankly, if the taxation and regulatory environment becomes easier for businesses, they're less likely to move their businesses overseas anyway. But then yesterday, seeing this televised news conference and the strip that he tore off of the CNN reporter, I just sat and laughed. That may not be that bad. I mean, certainly, I do not like the what I think is the Trump administration's disregard for budget sense, and I do worry that we're going to continue deficit financing, even though some in that administration argue that the increased economic activity will result in more revenue to the Treasury, and that we're not going to be hitting a deficit over the course of his presidency. I'll be really happy to see that. But, frankly, I'm really impressed with the guy, and as a libertarian, I don't come to that view easily.
It was interesting. I'd really never heard about, quote, fake news until the last, I guess, 2 weeks or so ago. I said, there's always news out there. It's questionable source. Where'd you get this from? Where'd you get that from? And you come to find out, it's false. That's not true or whatever it happened to be. But when they started sending out about Russia having information and blackmailing, and I'm sitting there going, Trump's a smart guy. I don't think he would allow anything like this to happen. And the next thing I know is the information was proved to be false, and it was brought forth by John McCain. And I'm going like, wait a minute, I thought they were on the same party. I thought they were trying to push in the same direction. But it seems like the Republican Party is fighting amongst itself even as we speak. They're trying to implode themselves.
Fake news is the new term, but propaganda has been here forever, and that's all we're talking about. It's different versions of different interpretations of the same piece of information. And in this particular case, I guess just outright falsehood made up whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just didn't realize how much animosity the Republican hierarchy has towards Donald Trump. I knew back in the 80s when Reagan came in, I talked to Paul Craig Roberts, and he explained to me the GOP felt just as bad towards Reagan as the GOP now feels towards Trump. And he says, I would not be surprised if an assassination attempt is not planned in the next 90 days. And he announced this on Facebook, Paul Craig Roberts did, and I kind of looked at it and said, holy moly, is he disliked that much? He goes, Trump is a threat to the status quo. And I went, really, you think so? I thought he was the status quo. He said, no, he's a threat to it because he's a business sense status quo, but he's not the political status quo. He is upsetting their apple cart because he's telling them, I'm not going to play your game anymore. And we're going to...
certainly a threat to the military security establishment. He used to call it military-industrial complex, at least Eisenhower did. And Roberts is well aware of that. There's no question. And frankly, as a libertarian, we're glad to see that. I'm hoping that there will be substantial military budget cuts, even though the rhetoric says, well, we're going to build the military, but he doesn't say exactly how.
Yep.
And maybe General Mattis, who I guess is going through his confirmation hearings today on Capitol Hill, will be enforcing a lot of, let's have a look at waste in our military budget and stop building things that we don't need. And maybe President Trump will be forcing the Congress to stop blocking when the Defense Department wants to stop building tanks or stop building equipment that they don't need, and the only reason they're being made is because congressmen are going after jobs in their own particular constituencies.
Right.
There's tremendous potential, I think, for shaking up the government for the better. And even though I disagree with Paul Craig Roberts on a number of issues, there's certainly a lot of people who are going to be gunning for Trump as he upsets the status quo.
I did that figuratively or literally when you say gunning. Oh, I hope not, because I don't wish that on anybody. I really don't. I didn't wish that on Obama. I mean, I may not agreed with him, but I don't wish that on any president. I've gone through assassination with JFK when I was little, and I know how that can play in the American psyche. You're losing a president. You martyr him from then on. They put on a pedestal, and you just really don't know what's going to happen after that. Everything is so unsettling for at least a year or two, and I don't wish that to happen to anybody. I don't even care if it's Putin. I don't want to see him assassinated either. Everybody's talking about, well, we're trying to be friends with Putin, and that's not right. And I'm going, man, I'd rather be friends with the people that dislike us and try to make friendship than make enemies. I mean, just common sense says, hey, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So let's see if we can use some common sense and quit this saber rattling and start being good neighbors to each other, because, well, this world, we all got to live on this world, and hopefully we can make this a better place before we leave it. But thank you so much for calling and being on here, Rob. I want to talk to you again next week, Ken. And I hope it works out for you becoming the chair of the selection committee. Is that what the chair you're talking about?
Member of the selection committee, chair of the platform committee.
Platform committee. Oh, just one more thing. I think you're a glutton for punishment, too. I really do.
Take care,
all right, you be good. I'll talk to you next week. All right, this is James Morris. Got Brian Armstead calling. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Auto Show. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.